You know, in today's world, we think about these phrases, don't we? Branding, influencers, marketing, that sort of stuff. But it's been around for years. It's just newology, isn't it? The words that they say, you know? And it does kind of make me laugh because when you look at branding, I often thought that nobody did it bigger and better than in the 1930s, 40s and 50s. If you went to a cinema, you sure knew what was on. You fell over the posters, you fell over the cardboard cutouts, and everything was there to make you sure that you were buying into the product that they wanted. It's fascinating to think, isn't it, when you look at the world now, because everything's an LED screen, you know, just a television screen, and it's on and off, and you've got to remember it all. In the old days, they branded things incredibly well. Now, when you think about it, there was no bigger brand for many years, if you like to use that phrase, than this particular lady, Wallis Simpson of Edward and Mrs. Simpson fame. And we've detailed her life many periods before. A fascinating woman when you think, because clearly she went into a life that she didn't actually want and had to take it on and do the very best. Of course, she had an elegant life, no money worries as such, but was trapped in a life with a former king who literally had no purpose. And this was the problem really for Wallis and Edward, because while she got offers, he simply didn't. What do you do with a king that has no personal role? And this was part of the problem for Edward and Mrs. Simpson, because she had a field of offers that kept coming her way. But the bottom line for her was she couldn't necessarily take them up or indeed placate her husband, because clearly, where did he fit into this? Yes, he had certain brand deals that they would have offered him, cigars, cigarettes and stuff like that, but it wasn't necessarily appertaining to the brand image. More importantly, they weren't offering him enough money. You see, she was the seller, a woman who could sell clothes, style, elegance. That was the deal that they thought. And that truly was the case of the perfume giant way back in the 1950s, Coty, the brand name. Now, what was fascinating about this particular company was they came up with an idea that we see all the time now, none more so in the 80s when all the soap stars like Joan Collins, Linda Evans all had their own perfume brand. Who bought those? And then, of course, the man had, the male, should I say, had their own aftershaves as well. If they wore it, it was good enough for us. Now, what's fascinating is when you go into the Coty archive, the bottom line is that, Wallis Simpson was offered basically what we consider the equivalent today of just shy of $1 million, with some royalties attached to that. Their idea was to simply come up with a perfume titled after her. Now, you might think at this point, would she still be a seller? She was bigger than ever in this particular period because she kept quiet and become something of a mystery, but always at the right social events with the right people, you understand. Now, the deal really fell apart simply because she again was very loyal to her husband, the former king. Where would he fit in on this? And they said, well, it's about you. And they said, well, And the bottom line again, and then the story really evolved simply because she just felt that it couldn't be something, if that became very successful independently, which they predicted it would, well, where would that leave the former king? And she was very susceptible to his, shall we say, fragile nature, didn't want to upset him. She knew that he'd given up a lot for her, and more importantly, now she was going to be the breadwinner. But as they pointed out, this would make you a lot of money. Sadly, she decided to turn the deal down, not just with that particular company, but with numerous companies afterwards also. And it tells you a lot about the woman in many respects, because if you think about today, could you imagine the other two that we talk about regularly turning down a deal of this level, particularly the former cable TV actress? So whether you like Wallis Simpson or not, there were lots of stories going around about her, about how difficult she was. But she did know that this would be slightly negative to the brand of royalty, even though she wasn't attached, she wasn't an HRH and was never given that title. But she decided that the sweet smell of success, even at nearly £1 million all those years back, wasn't simply for her. Neil Sean, Parliament, London.